old Derbyshire. I love it. It's wicked. Right, so let's... I've had to, I feel like I've been quite organised. Like I've printed things off and everything. We're going well so far. God, saying that's not filling you with much hope, is it? So I don't know if anyone knows what an ode is. Probably most of you. But if you don't, an ode is basically a celebration poem. It's just celebrating something, And I personally think the weirder the thing you're celebrating, the better. I did a workshop once where someone wrote an ode to Kendal mint cake. And I was like, yeah, I'm all right with that. I personally don't like Kendal mint cake, but it's all right, And this poem, I was trying to be really cool and smart and meta, so it's called Ode to Ode. There is something to be said about those that see joy in light fittings. The rag and bone man singing scrap metal between the houses from a beaten up white van. Once I heard a person shout, "Hey, look at that slice of pizza propped marvellously on top of that bin." That person was me. Love made me sick until it didn't. And I wanted to high-five every bit of toilet graffiti written as lipstick proclamations of praise. Yes, Sarah, I can imagine that you do have nice tits. I was here too, Robin. No, I didn't leave a mark. Isn't it wonderful how yeast wills flour to rise? It reminds me when there was a toddler in my garden cheering wildly every time I brought my axe down on another piece of wood. I imagine this is what the soil does when green shoots climb from its embrace. I have learned not to expect too much from nature. Try to remember that the sun is always behind the clouds, even though it's raining. Joy is an act of resistance. It can also be something that we leave for our children to find. Like an old photo album at the back of the wardrobe. It's easy to forget that it's there. Thank you. Cool. All right. Now for something different. Right. Has anyone ever seen Fighting With My Family on Netflix? Everyone's like, no, we have no idea what you're talking about. Doing well, Soph, doing well. So basically, right, it's this film. It's about wrestling. It's about this woman who becomes like the first UK WWE like diva champion, from the UK basically. And it was like a big deal. And they made a movie about her life. It's pretty cool. But there's this scene in it, yeah. And I go through obsessions. And I was going through a bar fight obsession at the time, just thinking about bar fights a lot. I don't know why. And there's a great bar fight scene in it that happens over Christmas. And, they're getting proper involved and, getting the decorations involved and snapping pool cues. And I was like, yeah. And my brain was like, all right, Soph, all right, what could make this better? What could make this even better, Christmas bar fight? And I thought, I'll put Jesus in it. So this poem is called Wrestling with Baby Jesus. Jesus tag teams 5 pints of Stella, picks up a packet of ready salted nuts and crushes them in his palm. Darren yanks a wise man from the nativity display and throws it at Jesus' head. This is a surprise grudge match. Winner leaves with nothing. Jesus snaps a pool cue over his thigh, smashes Mrs. Hill's vase into pieces over the carpet. Darren's fist yawns into him, blood pours from his mouth, his teeth, a factory line of overtime, his eyes, broken bottles. The dartboard sheds its numbers. The slot machine pisses pound coins. The man painted on the gents' door runs into the ladies. On the telly, Wizard stop playing and place bets from the summit of Roy Wood's beard. An audience member at the bar rocks on her stool, burbling the Lord's Prayer. Our Father who shart in West End, carol now be in Spain. The bell rings. The bartender calls time. The landlord phones the police, and the streets fill with the bird song of sirens. The sky throws up a burning bowling ball, dispersing the crowd like skittles. Come on, Jesus cries, screaming at the torn black bin bags, the footprint of dog shit smeared across the pavement, the graffitied neighbourhood watch sign. I'll take on all of you. It's my birthday, and I'm celebrating. Thank you. I'll do a few more for you, then I will introduce the lovely Charlotte, who I know you're going to be super hyped about. I'm going to read a poem, which it's quite funny because Casey judged this for the Wolverhampton Lit Festival. So I'm like, oh, no pressure, Soph. This poem does exactly what it says on the tin. It's called Dead Eel in the Thames. It's about when I saw a dead eel in the Thames. Eels, no, for real though, eels are amazing. Like, the European eel is amazing. They travel well far from the Sargasso Sea. You know, they go from seawater to like fresh water. They swim all up our rivers. They transform into the big badass eels we know them to be. And then they go all the way back to breed, eat themselves along the way, just like, you know, and then die. That's some mad stuff right there, man. And like my dream is to see like a real life eel like doing its thing in the wild. But I don't know, I just saw a dead one floating and I thought, well, I'm just going to have to do innit. It's the best I got. It's the best David Attenborough moment I've had for a while. Dead eel in the Thames. I wonder what killed it. This grey streak of light cracking the river's porcelain. Wonder if the runners in their neon shoes or the woman smoking a cigarette by the to let sign realise the distance of its commute. London flick books over me, all BBB, do more, all 2D teeth and shrink-wrapped sky risers. Two cyclists glide past, shout PBs at one another. A woman strides, stirring green bubble tea, ponytail pendulum ticking. We're all jellied miracles in our own way. Does anyone ponder the skin of trees this country once wore, or consider the age of water? Sometimes, when the light falls away, I remind myself that every star is a sun. The eel continues its journey, a silver ribbon caught in industry trawled between car horns and telephone lines. I too am gilled and floating, unable to lift my head above the skyline's current. A tourist ferry cuts the river and the eel is gone. The city's breathing quickens. Red sail signs scream down the window displays. The back of a dirt-sprayed bus tells me you too could. I feel a hand on my shoulder. A woman in a green jacket announces the rhinos are dying, as though extinction is a foreign country, one we must conquer. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to do one more for you. And basically, like, God, the past few years, it's just been totally wild, haven't they? They've just been wild. And all throughout this time, I was like, no, I'm not writing a lockdown poem. I'm not doing it. Everyone's writing lockdown poems. I can't even think about this. And then, you know, one day I was out in the world doing me allotted exercise time. Attempting to jog down street, probably with a fag on, knowing me. And I looked out over Chad in the wonderful Barbados, and there was an Aldi, and there, where the Aldi was, the sun was rising, and I thought to myself, sunrise over Aldi, what a poetry title that is. Smashed it, mate. So yeah, so this is about all the good things, all the good, positive things that I've seen over the past 2 years. It won't always be like this. Somewhere, boys will put down their postcodes and weep into tracksuits, step over double yellow lines and loiter with one another. On the south side of the city, a mother will embrace her daughter for the first time, try on her new name and find that it fits her lips. Caroline, she will say, Caroline, Caroline, you look beautiful. It won't always be like this. Somewhere, a 70-year-old birdwatcher will buy a motorbike and find that he too can fly. A black woman will show a mixed-race girl how to tie a head wrap, and something in her heart will leap. Somewhere, someone will utter the words, I love you, I miss you, I'm sorry. An atheist will speak Allah and smile at the taste of honey on his tongue. The dead will climb out of their graves and shake those standing in line at the bank. Somewhere, you will look down at the stars shooting across the dual carriageway and decide to climb off the iron railings. In the shadow of the service station, you will wait for dawn. Thank you very much. Thanks, peeps. You've been wicked. So as part of this lovely, lovely evening, as organised by the wonderful team at Nottingham Poetry Festival, I got asked to choose a poet who I would like to come and support and read. And the person that I decided to choose was the lovely Charlotte Lunn. Charlotte is a wonderful writer, but she's also just a really lovely person as well. And her collection that she's had out is absolutely brilliant. And I know that she's going to be reading some stuff from that tonight. So you're in for a treat, people. You're in for a treat. So please give a very, very warm welcome to Charlotte Lunn.
Water would be lovely, actually, yeah. I was imagining myself a second ago, like, choking during the middle of my set, and I was like, maybe some water would be nice. Oh, thank you, you're a star. You're just like, I can do this, I'll keep going. Can you hear me there? Do I need to budge the chair a bit? Thank you. There's always one awkward person, isn't there? Can you all hear me? Oh, you can. So I just wanted to say firstly, thank you so much to Sophie for nominating me as her poet to watch. I've admired Sophie's work for a really long time, and I'm really honoured to call her one of my really good friends as well. So thank you so much. And thank you to Nottingham Poetry Festival. Thank you to these lovely ladies at the front for having me. I really appreciate it. I am going to start with a new one, actually. As a disabled person, I spent a lot of time during the pandemic getting really angry at the way the government were treating the whole thing, at the way they lifted restrictions, the way they were sort of very blasé with vulnerable and immunocompromised people's lives. So this came out of that. It's called When Do We Riot? Tell them the right to protest is ours, 'cause they've clipped our wings and we're living a mirage. Our bodies are their property, they're rearing us like cows, just want to live and get outside this house. It's costing too much money, this disability. Just leave the sick inside their beds, no one has to see. Deceased with daily testing, it's time to live with it. Battery caged and car tags, this is where we fit. Omicron like wildfire, spreading land and sea, just what they wanted, herd immunity. Hospitals in crisis, every nurse is screaming. Boris on the TV just ignorant and beaming. When do we riot? As carers go off sick, the vulnerable can't feed themselves with Tory rhetoric. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm going to read you some from my collection now, which I actually realised it was a year ago this week that it actually came out. So it was my book's first birthday. So it's really nice to be here celebrating it with you lovely lot. So this book is very much about my experience with abuse, mental health and recovery. So there are some quite heavy topics. I don't think there's anything too graphic in it, but I will give content warnings as I go. So this one's called I Know What You Did. The monsters under my bed have done less sinister things than ring giving to those possessed, ornamental, soft, curtains heading my eyes into kaleidoscope sleep, peeping through to see if it's safe to leave my room, into boom of luminous yellow figures reflected on kitchen surfaces. Thank you. So I absolutely love the writer, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Does anybody know her work? Yes, she's amazing. And I particularly loved her book, We Should All Be Feminists. And I actually took a line from that as my title, which is We Teach Girls Shame. And I really wanted to explore how we look at periods and the shame that is sort of produced around being someone who has periods, and also when you're young as well, being that person who hasn't started their period yet and all your friends have started already. So we teach girls shame. Barely enough breast to fill a bra, but you're 10. It's time to be a woman now. Buttons undone, too many to see a ripple, whilst girls line up to shed their linings, but timing's what it's all about. Because ovulation is the new black. Did no one tell you, sweetheart? Or were you too busy tying your laces? Thank you. So this next one is called Consent, and although there's no graphic references in it, it is about rape. So if anybody wants to leave the room or close your ears or do whatever you need to do to make yourself safe, please do so. Consent. You ad-lib into sex because your dick forgot its lines. I can tell in 30 seconds that you're not going to be kind. You've never made love to a woman, have you? You screw with the idea that sexual frustration entitles you into my knickers, pin them to your wall, or better yet your floor, shrink wrap them like your Jorex hiding in your drawers, but whores are not only female. And your tail's seen enough V to be sectioned. Keep your erection under wraps. And I don't mean latex, but your tighty whiteys, chap. Thanks. So something that makes me laugh is whenever my non-poet friends are telling people that I'm a writer, they'll be like, oh, what kind of things does Charlotte write about? And they're all like, she writes about vaginas. And I'm like, yeah, fair, I do write about vaginas. It's a very important topic. So this next one is about a really bad experience I had when I went for my first smear test. It wasn't fun, and I had a bit of a joke about it because every time I got a letter to go for a smear test, it always fell on Valentine's Day, and I was like, are they trying to like stop me from having sex? Like this is very strange. So this is called On Valentine's. Gynecology decides to take a holiday and postpone your appointment every year. Hospital letter reads, you're not getting any. It's time for your smear. And there's nothing worse than another woman thinking she knows your body just because she's a woman. I'm sorry, but you're not acquainted with my cervix. And if you were, it wouldn't let you in for tea, let alone male doctor, colposcopies. It's my first time. My vagina is not a circus act. Questions asked, your legs in stirrups. Where do you live? Where do you work? What are you doing today? I wasn't prepared for this inquisition, stretched for spectators in awkward positions. The meaning of the screening isn't to watch me like a movie, but douse me in iodine, swab, then release. Thank you. Oh, I really like this one. I always tell people that this is one of my favorites that I like to read, because I remember, do you all have a poem that you write where you remember exactly how you felt when you were writing it, and you just really connect with that poem and you remember the feelings? This is that one for me, and it was very much a stream of consciousness. When I first wrote it, sort of just poured out, and then I went back and did some editing. So It Was a Concise Winter. Sharp, accurate, white. Like the cook or doctor that swept you away, covered in everything you tried so hard to hold on to. A numbing of the new pill they just gave you, of you can't move until you've finished feeling, until you've topped up your pot. These leaves leave you with nothing but bitterness, distrust and loathing of her curves hiding within your arms as I was sleeping. I wish I could be angry, because being angry is easier. And I wish you could be angry, because every time you talk to me, I get closer to replying. Because I was too much and not enough, and she told me I didn't need her anymore. After way too many, how do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10? You're only allowed to have one problem at a time. Until you laugh, until you cry, all at once. Thank you. Are you all enjoying Nottingham Poetry Festival so far? There's been some awesome events on, hasn't there? This next one is Please Get Comfortable. A witness to the stranger who speaks unfamiliar things but comes from getting familiar to get what she wants. Hoarding secrets sweetly, your hornet's mouth it lures. Or maybe it's the way you sound, the way it likes to purr. All I knew when I thought I knew you was that you needed sperm. Didn't matter where it came from or if it was to hurt, 'cause you didn't need the friendships. You're used to being alone. Just needed to have a child, a thing to call your own, because it will not know any better than you. Thanks. I'm so excited to hear the rest of the poets for tonight, and it's really lovely to finally meet you both as well. I actually went to Birmingham recently and went to the Hippodrome and saw Casey's face there. And one of your poems as well, and I was like, oh, it's Casey. I was like, I feel like I know you, but I've not met you in person. So that was really lovely. But yes, I'm excited to hear you both read. So this one is called Semi-Detached. There are days when you can hear me smile through the brickwork, unhinged, leaning further and further into myself. The doors are open, but I'm not sure I want you to come in. There's something stray about the connections in the garden, overbearing and sensitive. Language is a stairway to impersonation, where the floors are saving face, blocked by bowels of underlay. Feet tread softer. Thank you. Oh, that's one of my stick-it notes that's ran away. I hope it wasn't too important. This next one is vulnerable. Yeah, me and Sophie both go by the stick-it note process. It's clearly a poet thing. Be frugal with things and not with feelings. This isn't skinny living, but fat. It swells, not quite tubular bells, sweltering holy word to exorcism, but an inner thing that cares, wants to be shared quicker than fingers can click. Life experience is making you sick. You don't need it to be sensitive. Thanks. So this one goes out to my friend Sophie. It's called Girl. Your dreams are in your stockings instead of in your hands. Maybe that is why today you couldn't really stand the thought of getting glitter out your sequin pants. Once it's there, it's everywhere, it's likely to expand, to get around much like your heart, but you just need a plan to borrow stars straight from the sky and put them in your eyes. Remember that you sparkle to get you through the night. I love you. I think that stick-it note was from the last poem I was going to read in here before I read some new poems, but it's good I remembered my set list, so it's all right. So this one is the last one in my book. It's called Carousel, and this was one of the newest ones that I'd written at the end of my book, and it's very much about being in the process of recovery after going through abuse and mental health, but the idea that recovery is very much a journey in itself rather than an end point. Time moves forward, heedless to hiatus, feeding us to the years we are not yet ready for. These bodies whinny for overfilled plates, pivot in tandem, lock fingers, suffocate. Tapping on and off to the splutter of bridge meets river, archways we will not endure bring us to places where our eyes are taken from us. On the route with the delicate flowers, whose name I forget, lost signal grants us siesta on the stairs. Thank you. So I'm gonna go back to my phone to read some new poems, which is exciting because it was strange, actually. During the first lockdown that we went through, I was still in the writing stages of my book, Metamorphosis, and I feel like it actually gave me that kick up the bum to get it edited and to send it off to a publisher. And obviously I was really eager to send it over to Verve Poetry Press, and they said yes, which was wonderful. But I felt like if we'd not gone into a lockdown, I wouldn't have had that time. So make sure you're making that time for your writing. It's really, really important. But yeah, about a year after that, I didn't write anything at all. So it's really nice to have some new things to share with you tonight. So this one was recently published in Butcher's Dog Mag, and it's about the fact that when I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and ME, and one of the things that I noticed was the pain in my hands and my wrists. So I wear splints sometimes. So it's called the language of hands. In splints, they play dead like a possum, elongated and open. Come here, my darling. Stroking your face, just lucid dreaming. These windscreen wipers wave goodbye almost too many times. Who knows when I'll see you again? Starfish granular, curators of verse, my exhibits on pages. If you could see these hands, would they be stippled? Such hidden conditions, they explore a new way of being. Less is more, as more than a trend. Fists screwed up paper, release the tension, hold, then let go. Scuttling crab-like at the alphabet, an undulating tide and then foam. Thank you. And this will be my final poem of the night. So thank you again so much for having me, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. This is Behind the Supermarket, and it was about the first time that I actually remember getting really, really poorly. I think when you become chronically ill, you just think a lot about illness, and I was like recalling back to when I first got ill. When I was younger, I had glandular fever when I was about 10, and I was just about to start year 4, and I was off school for about a month, so I had a lot of catching up to do, so it's about my experience with that. Though these concoctions cannot be ingested, you'll find my apothecary at the end of the kitchen. The turmeric tiles lining the chimney breast where Santa is sitting. Pink in the face and inquisitive, you'll find my marbles under the fireplace, their dancing auroras entombed, my panic in the live-in room. Overheard whispers of, she gets to sleep all day and I have to exercise. being told I must rest when I'm not tired. Grandad's breadcrumbs on the worktops and fancy dress, red bumps on my skin as I stretch. Mum running to the door out of breath. Visits from medical men and words I don't know. I couldn't understand why you wanted a photo of me on the patio. First day of school, then in bed a year later, for over a month, sweating through sheets as they're collecting gold stars. Thank you very much. And Siren behaved herself as well, so that's all good.
Right, welcome back, everybody. Thanks so much again for being here. We've just had an amazing set by the Derby Poets, who are going to be a tough act to follow, to be honest. Yeah, so now we're going to move on to Birmingham, who are absolutely amazing, and I know they're going to kill it. Just a bit of trash talk. So the Derby poet that we're going to be bringing on first is Casey Bailey. Yeah, you not know Casey Bailey. He's the Birmingham Poet Laureate, and we're really excited to have him here today. So bio run, which is always really cringy for the poet, so enjoy. Casey Bailey is a writer, performer, and educator born and raised in Nachels, Birmingham. He was Birmingham Poet Laureate from 2020 to 2022. Casey's second poetry collection, Please Do Not Touch, was published by Burning Eye in 2021, and he's had poetry published in a number of anthologies and journals, including Poetry Birmingham Literature Journal and anthologies published by Emma Press and Verve Poetry Press. Casey has been commissioned by organisations including the BBC, Symphony Hall, West Midlands Combined Authority and Birmingham City Council, and he has performed his poetry in Edinburgh, London, Liverpool, Birmingham, France, India, and many other places. So with that, I'm going to bring Casey up. Can you give him a big round of applause?
They told me go to hell, and it's crazy because I've been there, neck deep. I ain't even changed into my swimwear, test me. But you can't give the grades if you ain't been here, been standing at my homeboys' graves. Like, how's this fair? Neck deep in hell. Raised in neat Charles, I was flipping in the 7, so I took a couple hours. What I seen with these eyes will leave you traumatized, but I'm steady on the rise like the water from the well. I made it where I'm from, so they know that I'm a trooper. Have you made it where I'm from? Then I love you and salute you. Might have met you in the past with my face behind the mask. Before I clocked, I had to take the mask off for my future. Mask off, took the mask off. Tell Houston there's no problem, because we're set to blast off. Back from the break like they took the cast off with the positivity the game's got a lack of. Let's go. Let me show you what I've seen. Take you on a journey through the places that I've been. Jump in the passenger seat. I'll tell them you're with me. And we can take it all in through my windscreen, police lights, gunshots, kids screaming. I've seen these nights on those blocks. I've been dreaming about more for our children. Before these roads killed them, look at how our youths are broken. Anytime we rebuild them, time we took a chance, time we made a change, time to look them in their eyes. Realize their pain, look into their darkness, help them see a light. In fact, look into their future and just help them see a life, because right now I'm seeing too much death. I can't stand it still. I stand up to pull it in a way they understand it. Sit down with them, really try and listen. They tell me it's hard to plan when your friends are murder victims, because it's hard to think in years when you live your life in days. Hard to dry your tears when you live your life in pain. We know it's hard to face our fears and to go against our peers. So how are you supposed to chase your dreams? And you know all three are the same. They need hope. Someone to tell them they can cope, and you're dope enough to push, so you don't need to push the dope. You are grown enough to know, young enough to learn. You've been cool enough to chill. Now you're hot enough to burn. You are powerful. You are power. You are the root, you are the stem, you are the flower. I know you've been through it and you feel stuck in it, but don't let your last minute jeopardize your next hour. I don't let my last hour jeopardize my next minute. Boy, I get it. Until the day I'm dead, I ain't finished. They told you half the story if they told you that I'm gifted. I've been grafting, I've been grinding. I didn't make it here by wishing. Man, listen, I am different. So don't compare me to them. 10 years ago, I was broken. Compare me to then. Couple choices could have seen me spend some years in a pen, but I'm here. So I will make a difference here with this pen. Thank you. So I'm feeling the seat as well, Adjei, so I'm going to sit down and chill out. Hello, everybody. Are we good? Are we blessed? Are we well? It's okay that that Derby were amazing, because a wise man once said, poetry is not about competition. Lots of wise people said it, I'm sure. I'm going to read some poems and cause no trouble at all. This poem is called Wax, and I published Wax in a poetry book called Waiting at Bloomsbury Park, which Anne graciously helped me to publish, and I'm still very proud of. It goes like this. He told me he would fly to the sun one day. Told me he would push from these gritty streets, these city streets, he would push and fly, higher than the rockets that NASA send. He told me he would fly to the sun. I told him that's what Icarus said. Brave boy with feathered wings held together with wax. Brave boy with bigger dreams than he'd ever seen. I told him that's what Icarus said. But he told me he would fly to the sun. He would fly higher than Thames Tower, Severn Tower, and Medway Tower. He would fly higher than those tower blocks stacked one on top of the other. And even if the crackheads that lived in those tower blocks and the police that raided the flats of the crackheads that lived in those tower blocks tried to stop him, he would make it. I can't help but laugh at the way he holds the police and the crackheads with the same level of disdain. And I know he hates the police more. I know he's more scared of becoming the crackheads, but he told me he would fly to the sun. I told him that's what Icarus said. Brave boy with feathered wings held together with wax. Brave boy ready to defy all advice he was given. I told him that's what Icarus said. And he looked me in my eyes, surprised that I gave him so little credit. And he said, fam, what kind of idiot holds their dreams together with wax when their dreams involve the sun? I listen and I laugh. We laugh. I laugh because everybody I know will tell me that he doesn't get it, and he will tell everyone I know that they don't get it, and I'm starting to think that maybe Icarus just didn't get it. This boy with dreams held together with hope, desperate to escape a labyrinth of his father's creation, desperate but determined to push, to rise, to fly. I have never seen someone stuck so long in a nightmare, hold so strong onto their dreams, and for a second, or if I'm being really honest, it was about half a second, I believed him. Thank you. Cool. So I, like Sophie and Charlotte, have a book that was published by Verve Poetry Press. I'm very, very proud of, because they are, thank you, hey, because they are an amazing publisher in Birmingham, and Stuart does such great work. And so I'm going to read a couple of poems from that book. And this one is called Spirit. There's a 3/4 bottle of Cavassier behind your back. When you see it to me coming up your stairs, the sigh of relief is audible like the 66 bus hydraulics. Half the tension in your shoulders rush from your body like we used to rush from that bus when it arrived at Star City. We. You, me, and him. You pull the Cavassier bottle out now and I look at you. We never really know what to say at times like this, where people say nothing or say something stupid, and I never know what's worse, but I never get it right. You were hiding that painkiller, but not from me. So as I sit down, you screw the lid off and look at me. I can't do this shit sober case. I can't. Big swig. I reach for the bottle and you smile. Not happy or sad, just a smile of unity. I'm with you, you're with me. I feel my cheeks water as the bottle rises, nostrils widen, I match your swig, then follow it with a small one as the walls of my throat become a chimney, breathing back the heat of the fire I just started in my stomach. There are 5 cars and about 15 people waiting outside your house for us to surface. There is a body in a church that we are not ready for, but just like them, he won't wait forever. There's half a bottle of Cavassier in your room, and no tension in your shoulders as we free ourselves. Today we carry his coffin. Tomorrow we carry his spirit. Thank you. So they're coming to take me away. And you guys are duty bound to defend me. That's how it works. So this poem is called Rise and Fall. And if I put it on a colored background and posted it on my Instagram page, it wouldn't have looked out of place. And after this morning's discussion, I thought I'd share it with you guys. So it goes like this. I never understood why the sun fell until I met her. Now I, like the sun, fall for her every night and rise for her every morning. Thank you. Cool. So those are some poems from that. The next poem I'm going to do is about suicide. It's about the ridiculousness of the stigma that is still attached to suicide. And it's called Multiple Choice, and it's also from that collection. Find a new place to hang this noose. Stop killing those who have already killed themselves, like they haven't suffered enough already, carried enough already, died enough already. To label somebody a coward when they are no longer here to represent themselves has to be the worst cocktail of cowardice and hypocrisy that I have ever tasted. Maybe he did it because he saw no hope in this life. Maybe she did it because her only hope is that another life would follow. I always thought the most difficult multiple choice questions are the ones where you feel like all of the answers could be right. Gravity is pulling us all down. And just because bricks fall faster than feathers, it doesn't mean they're weaker. They just carry more weight. A man who looked young but aged, with a face like distressed furniture, once told me that the greatest misconception around suicidal people is the thought that they want to die. Nobody wants to die. The issue is not everybody wants to live either. The most difficult multiple choice questions are not the ones where you feel like all of the answers could be right. The most difficult multiple choice questions are the ones where you are sure that none of the answers are right. And then you have to choose one anyway. Thank you. So, sorry, I'm just gonna sip my raspberry tea because I'm a rock star. All the rock stars drink raspberry tea. I was really fortunate last year to publish this collection, Please Do Not Touch, with Burning Eye. And the kind of premise of the collection was that I was going around like museums and national trust houses, and everywhere you go, there's a Please Do Not Touch sign on something that some person, that was good, I almost swore, that was good. Some person took from somewhere that they never should have taken it from. And if they had used some Please Do Not Touch at the time, then maybe I wouldn't be here looking at it. So, fuck them. Oh, there it is. It was gonna happen. My sincerest apologies. And so I started writing these poems about people leaving valuable stuff at national trust houses that they had no business having, about colonialism, and stuff like that. All the fun stuff. It's about all the fun stuff. And yeah, here are some of the poems. This is called Heavy Always. Running like children. Water whispering like traffic through double glazing. From the bench at Kedleston Hall, I hear grass crushed beneath city calloused feet. Spine curved by concrete slabs unravels in the presence of lifeless leaves. And still, even now, when I can't hear the city, I know it isn't silent. Blissful ignorance is a fallacy. The owners of land and life who inhabited this hall were never unaware. The burden of care can be carried by slaves. How I carry the sound of the city. Heavy, always. Thank you. And so while I was writing this collection as an excuse to take my beautiful son around national trust houses and just walk around and, I don't know, do shit that people do when they can do that kind of shit, I came across this art form which was called trompe-l'oeil, which is a French saying, and therefore I have mispronounced it, so I apologize. And the whole concept is things appearing to be one thing or appearing in one way when they're actually not. And I was at a National Trust house called Charlotte, and I will always name and shame the National Trust when I can remember the name of the buildings. And there was this massive painting, like huge. That arm movement did nothing to signify how massive it was. And it's a man on a horse and a black boy in a big metal collar holding the horse. And in a little leaflet that they gave out, it described the boy as a page boy. and I wrote this poem called Trompe-l'oeil. I realised that the National Trust is literally trompe-l'oeil on an organisational level, just one thing presenting as something that it isn't. The black boy with the metal collar is a page boy, chained like the horse he holds, a black beauty, a beast braced like the man he serves. Out of frame there is champagne pissing from the heavens, intoxicating. The statue lions have been roaring into the vacuum, animated in protestation, and here, in this corridor between actuality and invention, the black boy in the collar is a page boy. Cool. And this poem's called Library. If you've been to a National Trust house, they have the best libraries, and they have books that no one's allowed to read, and that pisses me off. And so this is, a lot of this is just taken from different quotes that are posted around different libraries at different National Trust houses. And it goes like this. It's called Library. This room is book lovers. This room is a testament, is 2 generations. This room is additional shelf space. This room where children read politics by the fireplace, these politics that place children by fires. This room, coated now in dust or ash. We discover how weeds became flowers, how light became controlled. This room is a doorway, this room is a boundary, this room is a foundation. This room knows no ceiling. Thank you. So when I thought I was finished writing this collection of poetry, I sent it to a poet called Roger Robinson, who is a genius. And I wanted him to say, Casey, this book's great, because that would make me feel better about things. But also, I'd recently read a interview with Roger Robinson in the Birmingham Poetry Literature Journal, and he wasn't necessarily complimentary of every poem that he'd ever read. So I kind of thought maybe he might say, Casey, this is not great. And he said, can you push back publication? And then we got into a really good conversation, which was so useful. And I realized that a lot of the poems in this book are about one thing, but the reason I wrote them is something very different, because where I grew up, there are still black boys and black girls who are struggling in poverty and in all kinds of horrible issues, whose family came from a country that had their riches absolutely turned over by this country. And then we sit here and go, oh, look at that poor country. I'm like, well, it wasn't poor until you took all the diamonds and shit, so maybe you should put it back. So I started writing some poems about where I'm from. And I'm going to read you a couple of them. This one's called Waking, and it's the first poem in the book. There is a violence to her tossing and turning that speaks to an ingrained experience of barbarity. Her eyes shut tight whimper relays echoes of the gunshots thundering through her mind. Burst berries sprayed across his jumper like they used to when she fed him at that high chair. On this day, his jumper will be cast aside by paramedics. She is fired from the barrel of a bed, too quick to feel the damp of a soaked pillowcase. She is racing to a room, searching for a boy who isn't there. He's never been there. She moved to this house to escape his ghost, to save his brother, to sleep until morning. Thank you. And so there's a pair of poems that I wrote for this book. And I wrote the first one because there was a boy who I was mentoring, and I went to see him, and he was very upset. He was upset about a boy who lived in his area who had been killed. And I thought he knew him, so I asked him how he knew him. He said he didn't really know him, but on another day, that would be like, that's me. And that resonated very heavily with me growing up the way I grew up, and having lost some friends in the way that I have. And so I wrote this poem called Every Boy Who Dies in the Ghetto Is Me. Maybe I was too young. They say your life flashes before your eyes. Maybe I haven't seen enough life. The only light I saw came with a bang attached. The only thing I saw was death, grinning like a schoolboy who takes money at lunchtime, snatching before speaking, without care. There wasn't rain on the day I fell. The street could not clean itself. A woman who looks like my mother had to clean the blood. She saw her son turn from smiles to spray, from stains to suds to silence. She saw her boy, barely born, buried before she saw him live. And I wrote that poem, and I was feeling very righteous and good about the fact that I could relate to that situation, because it reminds me of what, where I actually come from. But I went into a young offenders institute about 2 weeks after, called Oak Hill. Well, it's actually called a secure training center, because they were called prisons for children, anything to not call them prisons for children. And I did some work with a group of boys who had just come out of a workshop with a woman whose boy had been killed. And I said to the one boy, would it change the way that you think or the way that you act? I think my exact words were, would it change the way that you move? And he said, no. And then he said, very chilling fashion, somebody's mum is going to be here giving talks about their dead son, and it's not going to be my mum. And I will hold that with me for a very long time, I think. But I also, it resonated very heavily with me as well, with where I come from and how I had to grow up. So I wrote this poem, which is called Every Boy Who Kills in the Ghetto Is Me. And it goes like this. I am no Richter scale. I know nothing of earthquakes, but I can explain how the hand shakes as a trigger squeeze reaches a pause point. I could describe how both hands vibrate the morning after a boy drops in the wake of their treachery. I have killed myself and lived to tell the story. Is it still suicide if the you that dies carries a different heart, answers to another name, grew on another block? When your dad says sorry to his dad in the courtroom, is it sorry your son died, or sorry my son didn't? Thank you. So my first learning curve and epiphany moment in writing this book came when Roger Robinson told me it wasn't finished, which was correct. And then when I started writing about stuff like that, I had the pleasure of reading Poor by Caleb Femi and then interviewing Caleb Femi about it. And I realized that there's a lot of similarities between where he grew up and where I grew up, but I felt like he did a much better job of capturing the joy of those spaces. And I realized when I was 16 years old, terrorizing the world, I wasn't a depressed, sad boy. I was very, very happy. I didn't really realize how messed up it all was. So I wrote this poem, which is called Two Swings, which is absolutely not about me, genuinely, but it's just a thing that I thought was a nice thing about where I grew up. And they will not hold hands. Instead, they will let little fingers hang intertwined. In this bond, they will keep the time he said, I don't know, man, you're special. And the time she said, yeah, maybe not all boys, just most. Between this finger link and his black Air Max 95s brushing along the side of her white Air Force Ones, they will hold a phenomenon that breaks every rule of this place. They will wrap it warmly in black tracksuits, dip it in honey, coat it in Demerara sugar, and rock it back and forwards on these swings under midnight sky. Thank you. Cool. So I'm going to read two more from this, and one is about my son and the other one is about my other son, and that's because you can't have a poem about your son without having a poem about your other son, and also both of them are really actually about my wife, so they can work that out amongst themselves. The first one's called Soup, and it's about my son Xander. Today, you ate tomato soup like it was the first meal you had eaten in days. You had a half a cheese sandwich for lunch at 1:30. There is soup on the table and bread in your hair. You look like Mowgli from the Jungle Book, if Mowgli had eaten soup. And you smile as the yogurt is placed in front of you. You look at yogurt how I looked at your mother the day that I met her. You look at yogurt how I looked at your mother at 4 o'clock this morning as she sighed in her sleep, dreaming of you and your ways. You look at yogurt how I looked at your mother when I found her in the art room painting at college, leaving her paintbrush darting like sparrows on autumn mornings, leaving crimsons and caramels in their wake. I knew then that she would spend her life both being and making beauty. She feeds you yogurt. I take the wipes out. There is soup all over the floor. And this poem is called 1902-20, which is the day that my son Jackson was born. And it is a nonnet and a reverse nonnet written around my wife's birth affirmations going horribly wrong. Birth affirmations are good if you want something hilarious at an absolutely terrifying time. And it goes like this. There's no rain without flowers, you said. Blundering through affirmations, they press scalpel through torso, no flowers without rain. We laugh at mistakes, embracing how magical he is born. Born, he is magical, embracing how we laugh at mistakes, no flowers without rain. They press scalpel through torso, blundering through affirmations. There's no rain without flowers, you said. Cool. I'm just going to read a couple more and then I'm going to dash from the stage and let my guy Adjei take over. So this next poem is called Muse, and I want to dedicate this poem and the poem after it to my friend Leon Priestnall, who, if you know the Birmingham poetry scene, Leon was a giant of the Birmingham poetry scene and the best thing to ever come out of Birmingham. I saw a man become a meme and I saw a man become more. Did you know? Looking from the backseat of the taxi on Bennett's Hill, eyes piercing smoke as it left his lips, did you know he would talk of you, how he spoke of Lupe Fiasco verses? He told me I would be as inspired as he was, and I denied it. Denial is a trilby half-cocked on a head of self-doubt, superficial surface-level sheathing so the silhouette of spectres that sway behind your eyes stay secret. A wallet stuffed with insecurities when life will never pay you what you're worth. I ask if you saw the video he made. You say you saw me crying, and I denied it. Denial is a whirlwind at the world's end, but when you're running from reality, you will run to anything or nothing. Running from reality is like running from your backpack. Speed does not increase distance, only desperation. I ask if you've seen the man that you inspired, and you say he is gone. And I denied it, and I denied it, and I denied it. Thank you. And this poem's called Fruit Pastels. I love fruit pastels. I don't love every flavor. When I get to a flavor I don't like, I eat it. I know that the quickest way to a flavor that you do like is to eat the ones that you don't like. That makes it easier to eat the ones that I don't really like. One time, my friend got a pack of fruit pastels that had 9 yellow ones in a row. It was awful. I told him the next pack will have all good flavors, but it was too late. He decided he doesn't like fruit pastels anymore. Cool. So, the last poem I'm going to read. I know. No, I'm going to read 2 more. Then I'm going to run. This one's called Blue. And I think it tells its own story. You don't talk about the chip in the brick anymore. The wisteria holds the wall like you inside my coat on the days that I conspired with the wind to bring you closer to me. The leaves have been dancing in the heavy breathing of the patio, swaying in the breeze, as indecisive as the wagtails that keep landing on the fence, staring at the bird feeder with equal parts temptation and trepidation in their gaze. They never hesitate like this with the grass seed. You made me put a birdhouse up on the back fence, and I swore it was stupid until 2 blue tits came to look around the property. It's open plan, with a nice garden, but you have to bring your own bedding. We watch them come and go. We know the beauty of home building. We know. The buds on the golden birch have started creeping out of springtime just when we had accepted its passing. It's laughing from the corner of the garden. I'm not the orange tree you left outside over winter, you know. You don't talk about the chip in the wall anymore. Imperfections go missing in the pirouette of contentment. When smoke climbs to reach the clouds, it may slip from sight, but it does not become water and ice. You don't look past blemishes lightly, but I know how you have stood by me, so I know what it means when the damaged wall no longer causes stress. We are home here. I wave to the neighbor out the back window. She, looking through the circular hole in her wooden haven, sings her morning song. I drain the last of the coffee and survey the in-between. You catch me looking for growth. tell me it's on this side of the window. Thank you. Cool. So, yeah, this last poem is dedicated to young boys, girls, humans of all description who have been living in the in places like Palestine and Syria for their entire life and don't know anything other than war. It's called The Air. The air tastes different here. When the blood is infused with serotonin, the face already holds the terror of the moments past, like the opening of the Trojan horse, like you rising from your knee, diamond in hand, them with hand still naked. The air is not the same when my son runs from the house as a Chinook helicopter overhead. I wonder if in Palestine there are still boys with walnut hair and coffee irises, with the naivety to run binocular-eyed, hearts imploding with euphoria, screaming, "Mommy, a plane, a plane." Thank you. I forgot I have to do like a tiny piece of hosting. Dreadful, noadmin.com. So Adjei, I brought Adjei here because Adjei is that guy. Adjei's recently come back from performing in Dubai, right? But more than that, Adjei holds spaces in Birmingham often and very regularly for questions that are so important around what it means to be a human, what it means to be a man, what masculinity means, what it means to be a black person living in this beautiful society that we live that doesn't always love us back. And I think the questions that Adjei's poetry asks are some of the most important questions that we could want answers for. And I would love to discuss those answers with you after he absolutely kills his set. So please make some noise for my very, very, very good brother, Adjei Sun.
When you let me undress your mind, when you showed me your deeper side, the first time I saw you with tears in your eyes, and you told me you was hurting inside, I said it was okay to cry sometimes. If you need me, I'll never leave your side. I've saw the heartbreak you've been trying to hide ever since your best friend died. They see your smile and they think you're fine. Don't see the light fading inside. Life got harder since he left your side, but you gotta hang on cause life is a ride. Gonna know that I can't take your pain away, but let me be there on your darkest days. In my morning, your smile rolls me up again. Sometimes soul flowers must sit in the rain like the revolution will not be organized, no. A mayor told me that only dead fish swim with the tide. Oh, pretty bird, why are you so afraid of? They've convinced us it's a disease to use your wings to fly. Maybe you should start listening to the tiny whispers of intuition inside. Thank you. So I was not planning to start like that at all, but I saw Casey and I thought, okay, it should flow if I do that. So the way that I usually start my sets is like this. So usually I would bring a sound healing bowl. So I'm actually a certified yoga teacher, and so I really like to, especially after lockdown, I began starting sets with everybody just, can everybody close their eyes? I invite you to, you don't have to. But so it helps me and it helps audience as well. So in terms of grounding down, can everybody just take a moment to, you don't have to do anything. I'm not gonna ask you to do anything except for just like notice. Like, what are you feeling right now in your body? Is there a little bit of nervousness? Is there a tickle? Is there laughter? Is there some agitation? What sounds can you hear? Notice 3 things you can hear. Is it outside the window? Is it your breathing? Notice 2 things you can feel. Is it your breath rising and falling? Is it the chair beneath you? Notice 1 thing today that you're grateful for. Have a little quick think. Flicker over the day. What was it? Smile to it. Allow that feeling of joy to ripple through your body. And have a little shake of your body, a little shake of the shoulders, like you're in school, a little shake of the head. And then just open your eyes and return to here. I think we've had some beautiful poetry today, and with spaces like these, it's so important to have these important conversations, especially that amount of conversations that we've had through the poems today. But I believe it's also important to have this comfort, but also create spaces where we can feel joy and relaxation while doing that as well, to balance it out and to take care of ourselves while we try to raise awareness of these different issues. And so I just want you to think throughout this set about what a safe space looks like for you. And then maybe at the end or after, you can tell somebody what a safe space looks like to you, and you can listen to what a safe space looks like to them. You don't have to clap between each poem. You can just take it in. And yeah. So I'm going to begin with a poem. So my poems that I'm going to read today are about masculinity, love, and male intimacy. And some of them are heavy, some of them are light. And I'm going to begin with a short poem, which is an interlude called Vanishing. I am a chorus of clanging teaspoons whenever insomnia takes me for walks. So that poem leads into a poem called Vanishing. And it was actually a poem that Casey doesn't remember, but I showed it him in a coffee shop. He might remember. And he told me that these 2 lines, I believe, the ones that I just read to you, could be taken out and could be a whole poem by themselves. So the actual poem is Vanishing. A collection of lucid fears. To love me was to love a living, breathing symptom of sleepless nights. For in the depths of my mind lingered monsters. Into the fog and Bacardi, depression invited cousin anxiety. All night house music played, though at home I cannot say I felt. Like that one time you went to a rave on New Year's that you had no business at. The people you arrived with now somewhere on the clouds of marijuana. A girl walking past you by the bathroom tells you to smile. You standing in the corner, seemingly antisocial, unwanting of what everyone is offering. Pretending to be asleep, I'd grasp for nakedness in the white sheets, pulling them around my skin as Mom entered the room to check on me, convinced it was a weakness to show any form of hyper-emotionality except anger. Careful not to overwater, the way you would tend to succulents. I watered myself with my tears alone. Like a criminal in a lineup, I would approach the mirror, staring at the pimple opening shop on my forehead. Triggered, I would hear the words they used to describe my features. Words like block, burnt, kunta kinte. I prayed to escape the skin I was born within. To avoid school, I made myself sick. Aside, I pushed my plate, having eaten 2 bites of peas and rice. Teeth marks on the skin around my fingers, greased in shea butter. Into selfie camera, car window, glass, I stared, trying to find something worth calling pretty, pulling flesh to belong to another body. I boy that became skeleton and vanished into thin air. So, on my journey, my mom has inspired me a lot in terms of just the way that she brought us up and just knowing her story. And so I'm gonna share with you that part of me, which is the first part of me. So this poem's called Make Her Proud. My mom was more excited for my uni graduation than I was. On the night of my graduation, Mom said that I went to uni twice. Once when I was in her belly, and once now. And both times she said she wore blue. My mom was a freedom fighter. I remember one of the few times I heard her speak of her trauma, about how on some night she tossed and turned when the echoes of sickening hands that made her feel like her body wasn't her own played on repeat in her mind. On graduation night, my mom reminded me that she studied while carrying me in her womb, worked 2 jobs to provide while in her final year. But I knew that her joy spoke deeply to surviving ingrained experiences of trauma in her youth that could have made her go to the earth's edge long before I was even a dream. A happiness that spoke to seeing all the work she put into giving me better than what she had when she was younger rewarded. Now, I just want to grow and keep reminding her of the freedom she prayed and fought for. Now, I just want to grow and make her proud. Thank you. So, I'm going to read a poem called The Gush of Spring. And in Yoruba cosmology, which is a tribe in present-day Nigeria, there is an Orisha called Yemeya. Yemeya is known as the mother of oceans. And I wrote this poem inspired by that Orisha. Steam from river rises like smoke, ascends like a call to ancestors. Cool waters carry away my dead leaves, purifies like the scent of white rose incense that burns to ashes like the dead, prepares hearts for sea. Ghosts known, ghosts unknown, rise to surface to be felt. Like a merman, I return from land. Remember my tale again. Honor calls for healing from the owner of rivers, the gush of spring. Even though I tremble on arrival at Aye's edge, fear to be eaten by weird fishes. Out of my goldfish bowl I go, into the arms of the deep unknown. I wade out. On the other side of the resistance, there is indelible love. So lately, I had a thought that I realized that a lot of the times in my life, when I was younger especially, there weren't many males that I was able to have like these, or not even that I was able to have, but the conversations just never really got there where we could speak about like how we were actually feeling. Like it felt like a lot of the time there was always like a distraction, or we just never got there. But lately, through creating the events that I've been creating, I've been speaking to a lot more men about these things, about masculinity and love and gender and all of these topics, which is beautiful. And so as a yoga teacher, one thing I've done in a poem is kind of explore a pose called Child's Pose and looked at it through the lens of masculinity. So this poem is called Bend Your Knees. Actually, no, that's a lie. This poem is called Instructions to a Child's Pose. 1, bend your knees. Coming back to child's pose is not only about my hurt. When I pass other shadow men on the street, how often do I smile the way I smile at older people? When was the last time I and the brother's eyes touched in public? Did our pupils widen like open palms to let each other know we were safe? How often did I put the peng, fluffy rice, like the way mother makes it, away in a container and only serve the man them harder grains from the bottom of the cooking pot? 2, send the hips back. Despite being watered in England, I grew in a very Bajan house, was fortunate to learn how to giggle with my hips. How often did I strap myself firmly into a 2-step when vibrations tickled my waistline? Having experienced the rubber phobia some of the man around me met these movements with. How many of us policed ourselves from having our bodies dance in the way that they craved? 3, bring the forehead towards the mat. In conversation with my yoga teacher, she told me that many of us hold pain in our hips. In class, she would invite us to come back to extended child's pose on our mats, opening our hips if we were ready to stop holding a pose. 4, breathe. Now, the more I practice my release back into child's pose with other men, the more I find that it is not just about our pain. It's about the space we make to access our sunflowers too. Thank you. I'm gonna read a couple more, just conscious of time. And the next poem I'm gonna read is a poem. So this is another poem about having a conversation about masculinity and topics like that with a guy. And this poem's called My Brother's Reflection. Last night, you held up a mirror for me, like when mom does papa's hair, holds a mirror behind so he sees his hidden parts. I'd never gone so far with a man, like going out into sea at Accra Beach, feet can't touch the ground. Sat me down and cleaned your mirror, said your depression is a fuzzy gray room, can see a market of reds, yellows, greens out your window, but can't make it outdoor. I said anxiety feels like being at home alone when I was younger. I'd freeze or hide if strangers came to the door. Before the roundup, gut guided you to put on some Uncle Kendrick. Promise that you will sing about me. Promise that you will sing about me. Don't know if it was the full moon, the candle white like Obatala's cloth, or something in the stew that you chefed up. But there was a moment when I looked at you and was staring right back at me, clearer than I'd ever seen myself. Your mirror didn't just reveal to me a sun. Your mirror revealed a shadow too. Integrated the parts of me I'd cast into the underworld. Like the moon, I rode my bike home as a whole. So I'm going to close with a couple more poems. And I'm going to read a poem after Sade, who is an amazing artist. I mean, y'all probably know who Sade is. But yeah, this poem is called Soldier of Love. Into the valley of love, into the land of heartbreak, I marched as a soldier of love. I was on the front line, took your bullet straight to my heart, but somehow I still survived. My heart was broken. I swallowed my pride. They said I was too weak to be a man. I didn't want to let you in, but every time I tried to leave, I was scared to be lonely again. I had to lose my peace of mind. A tornado flew around my skies. Locking myself away, I cried on my own. I Googled affirmations for heartbreak, tried many different types of meditation. This love made me a broken home. Napalm skies, you tore me apart inside. Still I wore my heart on my sleeve. No bird sang, the sun held its breath. Still I let love take the lead. And now I'm going to finish. It's not a poem per se, but I've been thinking a lot about love recently. A book that really inspired, I had an event a month ago called Demanding Masculinity and Love, and it was inspired by a book by Bell Hooks called Men, Masculinity and Love. And recently I've just been writing a lot about love and having a lot of conversations about love. So if anybody wants to have a conversation about love, then I'm friendly, come find me. So this writing is called On Love Beyond Romance, Man Enough to Love. And thank you everybody who allowed me to be in this space today. Thank you Casey, thank you Nottingham Poetry Festival, thank you amazing artists who came before me. I'm grateful. Adwa told me that love is not found in isolation, but in communion. When I was younger and asked what love was, I was often taught about love as an event. Sweaty palms, butterflies in the stomach, a racing heart. Love was something I had to wait for. The movie said, when it arrives, you will know. I've been fortunate to grow and learn about love, not just as a pretty noun, but as a liberatory practice. I do not need to wait for romance to practice loving. If I am skillful, I can practice being in love in all of my daily interactions. I need to be man enough to normalize asking people if I've made them feel listened to and safe in our interaction. I need to understand how I can do better to make them feel seen and humanized. Systems of oppression are based on valuing some lives over others. I've learned that I am connected to these systems. As a man, I need to normalize seeing my little daily interactions as spaces where I can choose to water the seeds of connection instead of isolation, where I can put solidarity into action instead of watering the seeds of oppression. I do not need to wait for romance to practice loving. If I do, it might be too late. Now, more than ever, love needs to be every step. Thank you. I was really nervous about coming here. I haven't performed. I can't remember performing poetry like outside of the West Midlands, like in the UK before, so I'm really grateful for this opportunity. Like I was so excited to come to Nottingham, never been here before. And it's been beautiful to meet everyone, and I'd like to meet more people and speak after. But before we go, as I said, we've had so many deep and heavy and light and beautiful conversations today. So everybody just do one shake, one shake, one shake, one shake, one shake. You know how good shaking is. Oh my gosh, like shaking's scientifically proven to release like anxiety. And it's mad because when you're dancing and you're naturally shaking, you're just like letting things fly. So yeah, thank you. Sorry for taking up 2 extra minutes.